Dominique Wilkins was just on Steven Jackson and Matt Bard's show. I forget the name of it. I think it's called All the Smoke or whatever it's called. But I just saw this clip in which he was telling them his view on Scottie Pippen. I'm going to read the quote of what he just said. He said, Scottie Pippen, I have a lot of respect for. I think he's one of the greatest role players to ever play this game. He probably the best that ever played this game. Dominique called Scottie Pippen a role player, which I do feel is an insult to Scottie Pippen of how great of a player he is. I'm hearing a lot of people saying, hey, this is a great compliment. Nah, this is not a compliment. This is an insult. Scottie Pippen may not have been on Michael Jordan's level. He definitely wasn't. But he was a great player in his own right, to be fair. He was a great player. Was he a player that could ever be the number one guy? No, but that's pretty much the history of the game. Just very few guys can be number ones. You have a lot of great number twos, and he's definitely a great player. He's not a role player. Let me just give you guys my idea of what a role player is. I'm going to list some guys who are all agreed on to be role players. Robert Horry, great role player. Bruce Bowen. Trying to think of who else on the top of my head. Horace Grant during the 90s was a great role player. Danny Green during his time on the Spurs was an amazing role player. Those types of players are role players because they have specialties, but they can never really go beyond their specialties. They can't really take over a game. They have spurts where they can influence the game if they're put in certain situations, but they can't just take over a game at all. And they're not consistently good enough every night, which is required of you when you're a star, that they're not consistently good enough. So that's really how I define a role player. Just another example of a role player I think is a very good role player in the current NBA, KCP. He's a very, very solid role player, but he's definitely not a star. Every now and then he can have a game where he scores 20 or more, in which he can look like a star, but he can't do it consistently. And that's why he's a role player. He has a specialty. He's a 3-and-D guy, great defender, can hit the 3-point shot, but outside of that, he cannot really impact the game. His impact is situational. It's not stuff that he can get outside of a system. Whereas when you're above average player, you're not just thriving because of the system. It's because you can create opportunities for yourself and your teammates. And Scottie had that ability when he was a player. Keep in mind, Scottie may not have been a great scorer, but he was good. When he had to, he could give you 20 or more. He averaged 20 or more points 4 times in his career. That's pretty impressive. And you got to look at the era he did it in. This was the slow-paced era of the NBA where the defensive rules were at their height. So it was very hard to be a scorer in this league. 20 points per game in that league today would be the equivalent of scoring 25 a game. I just always adjust for scoring inflation pace. But Scottie was an amazing player. Definitely not a role player. Just his skill set, his playmaking. This guy could get you 6-7 assists a game. And I think sometimes he averaged more than 7. I think he had one season in his career where he averaged more than 7 assists a game. And this is not being the point guard. Yeah, he did average 7 assists during one season, which was the number 91-92 season. That just shows you again that he wasn't just a role player. He was an all-star, a legit all-star player. I just want to go through his resume. I'm not going to mention the championships he won because you guys are just going to diminish that. But 7-time NBA All-Star, 3-time All-NBA First Team, 2-time All-NBA Second Team, 2-time All-NBA Third Team, 8-time NBA All-Defensive First Team, 2-time NBA All-Defensive Second Team. He was the NBA steals leader in 1995. This is not a resume of a role player. This is a resume of a star player. Scottie was a legit star. I just can't believe that people have a hard time admitting that now. And I do find this annoying because I feel this goes back into this stupid GOAT narrative argument people use to say Michael's a GOAT. And I do have Michael as my GOAT, but I don't believe you had to diminish Scottie to make Jordan the GOAT. To me, it's the dumbest thing. Scottie was a great sidekick to Michael, but he was no role player. Let's get that straight. He was definitely not a role player. To me, it's just absurd when people say that just to just to push Mike's narrative being the GOAT, which he is, but both things can be true at the same time, that Michael Jordan was the GOAT and Scottie Pippen was also a great player that got to play with Michael Jordan. Both things can be true. I just don't get why people have a hard time accepting this. And then let's go just another step further. When you look at the all-time greats at the small forward position, Scottie is easily in the top 10 of all-time small forwards. There's only 5 or 6 guys you can say is definitively better than Scottie Pippen. LeBron James, Larry Bird, Dr. J, Kevin Durant, Elgin Baylor. And that's pretty much it. You could say Dominique was better than Scottie. That's fine. You can definitely say that Dominique was a superior scorer than Scottie. He was the number one man on his team. He led the Hawks to several 50-win seasons, which is impressive. So I'll give you that if you want to argue that. But still, it's still pretty damn close. He's definitely in the top 10 of all-time small forwards. I know some people could argue Paul Pierce was possibly better, but then again, that still puts Scottie in the top 10. I just don't get how people can say Scottie was a role player when he's top 10 at his position all time. He was a several-time All-Star, made a bunch of All-NBA first teams. To me, it's just absurdity. I don't know if Dominique was trying to throw shade at him. I think Dominique actually likes Scottie Pippen, but I just think that's an insult just to call him a role player. Maybe he doesn't know that was an insult. Just he's getting up there in age, but I felt that was an insult to Scottie Pippen and just his legacy. I think people forget how great Scottie was just due to all the crazy things that have happened off the court for him the last several years, due to some of the crazy stuff he said and just the stuff going on with his disgraceful ex-wife, who is a straight up slut. I could say that. I'm just gonna say that. But people just forget this. He was a great player. Go watch some of his old games, just some of his highlights. Just to say he's a role player is just stupid and idiotic. That's all I have to say.